Here's part two. This is going to be talking about the cultural geography of Sub-Saharan Africa. So we're learning about the people, culture, customs, traditions, as well as some of the challenges that they face. Okay? So starting off, we're going to talk about population. Africa is a young continent. 50% of the population is under the age of 15. They have the highest birth rate. Oh, sorry about that, guys. They have the highest. So sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened there, but apparently I just deleted like 3 slides. Anyway, we're back up. They have the highest birth rate, so a lot of children being born, but at the same time, they have the shortest lifespan of any continent. So people are really not living past 50 years old or so because of the prevalence of disease, lack of healthcare, poor agriculture, those kinds of things. Low economic growth rate, high poverty, lots of poverty. It's really a problem for the majority of sub-Saharan Africa, unfortunately. Population is not equally dispersed, which means that in some areas it's very, very, as you can see here on this chart, if it's dark blue, there's a ton of people. If it's kind of lighter blue, there's really not many. So as you can see here, most of the people kind of live here, what's called the Ivory Coast, here in Western Africa, the Horn of Africa. And everywhere else, though, with the exception of maybe parts of the Congo, it's just very sparsely populated. People obviously live near water sources. Farming, little farmland. We talked about this in a previous lesson. There's too much salt in the soil. It's not. This is one of the major causes of kind of lack of resources, lack of food. Is that the soil has been overused? It's got too much salt. There's a lot of drought that happens due to the climate zones. Really a problem. Some of the major causes of death. Obviously, we talked about poverty, which brings with it a whole plethora of other things, such as poor nutrition, people dying of malnutrition, so on and so forth. Famine, from not being able to grow enough food. Lack of clean water is another big issue. Diseases such as AIDS, tuberculosis, so on and so forth. Lowest standard of living in the world. Despite all that, people generally tend in the modern world to try and move to cities because that's where the jobs are. And that is what urbanization is. So this kind of ties in with the idea of push and pull factor. So people being, kind of pulled into cities and areas for a specific reason, or being pushed out for a specific reason. So a push factor is you're being pushed out, usually a bad thing. A pull factor is something good that you're being drawn to, such as a job in a city. Some of these push factors might be like environmental changes, a drought, or, for example, can't grow food, economic pressure, religious persecution, political persecution, slave trade is a big problem in Africa still to this day in the salt mines. All right, and that wraps up today's lesson.